This is Shaped for Law, a podcast series that plugs you into the world of legal technology. Join host David Fazacoli, CIO of CTS, as he covers news and trends shaping the legal industry.
Well, here we are, our first podcast of the series, an audience with the CIOs, and I have with me the fabulous David Aird of DAC Beachcroft. Hello, David.
Nice to be here. Lovely to welcome you to our offices.
It's great to be here, and it's great to be here in person as well, because
Absolutely.
our
For the first time in
world
quite a while.
has only just opened up, hasn't it? And so
has
it's been good to get all this snazzy equipment together and sort of put it together.
Absolutely.
And so let me start by saying thanks
Nice.
very much.
Nice to be able to be in touching distance of people.
Yes, exactly.
Not sure we're still hugging yet, but at least we're
No.
getting close to
We're
it.
almost high-fiving with a miss, aren't we? A sort of an air high five, just a little bit like that. So, thanks for agreeing to not only do this, but actually to kick off our podcast series. So, you and I have had a bit of a chat and agreed some topics that are important to you or that you want to talk about, because very much with this podcast series, it's what each of the different leaders in the firms that we're going to be talking to, what matters to them, what's on their mind right now, this next period, not the past, this period now, 2022, and looking a little bit further ahead.
Yeah.
And so that's what you and I are going to have a little sort of chat about now.
Good, and I'm excited for that, looking forward rather than looking back. I'm fed up of this chat about COVID and offices and flexible working. Let's get on with the job at hand and move forward.
Because there's been a lot of it, hasn't there? It's been very...
Too long.
and also, how do we cope with this world? It's like, well, no, let's just now do
Yeah.
rather than talk about it and navel gaze. And I think you're quite right. I'm going to start off with what I know is a topic close to both of our hearts and some of the work that we've both paired and been involved with on diversity and inclusion. Now, diversity and inclusion means different things for different people and their organisations as well. Organisations have different strategies around diversity and inclusion. But I'm interested in your personal take on this area. So, yes, from the DAC view, but from your personal perspective, where do you think we are with D&I agendas and priorities? What's your thoughts on this?
I think, just to start from the scratch, I think it's important to me, I'm gay, as you know, a gay guy. I've grown up, in a council estate in Glasgow from a working class family, went to uni, managed to do quite well in my career and be quite successful. And end up being interviewed by the also fabulous David Fazacoli. But I think because of that background, and also I'd like to think that I'm a nice person, that I want to see people to get on. So I think there's diversity in the fact that, be it sexuality, colour of skin, etc., but also diversity of social mobility, people having opportunities in lives that perhaps their families have never had in the past. And I think, people like myself, we do have to watch that, because we've managed to, get through that struggle or make that, get on in life. It doesn't mean everyone else can. Sometimes you need to give people a little bit of help. I think also with diversity, it's also important, at the moment recruitment is such a huge issue for most of us, between Brexit, the pandemic, challenges in business. I think having access to as wide a pool as possible is really, really important. So if we can get them from, wherever, cast that net as wide as possible, then it really helps me and my team get the best possible people wherever we can find them. So for me, it's two things. It's one, it's making sure people get the opportunity and that, equality, inclusion part of it. But then also, selfishly for my team, my business, is making sure we're getting good quality people in this war for talent. That certainly, and I think these things are often overhyped, but at the moment, everyone I talk to in business has got loads of vacancies and are fighting, this war for talent.
For a very small pool of people, and
Absolutely.
Therefore wanting to be as attractive as possible.
And make the pool as bigger as possible, so make yourself as attractive as possible by being the best employer you can be, but also widening that pool rather than just saying, we want that type of person.
I'm going to try and unpack a few things that have just jumped into my head just sort of talking, and that is, you're a strong personality, David, well known within the legal community for all the right reasons, and therefore you've been an advocate and a champion of the gay community within legal and the wider diversity communities and the schemes you've done. So did I sort of detect, though, that you still have some concerns for those who are perhaps not as easily outspoken as you and me, actually, in this area, that there might still be more to do for people to feel truly included and accepted if they're somewhat a little bit more introverted of personality?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think people talk about power and all of this, but positional have power, resource power, all these different types of power. So you and I are, both in strong places in our career. Not everyone has that. I've got people, in our business that I know are LGBT and are not out at work, for example, and in my, own team as well, and through the grapevine, whatever, people kind of know, but it's not really spoken about. And in 2022, I think that's, not where we want to be. Now, I'm not here to out people, I think those days are long gone, but I think you just want to make it just a non-issue, just be yourselves. And we talk a lot about, we're sort of going beyond, sexuality, gender, colour of skin, and just talking about bring your whole self to work. If people just bring themselves to work, can be whatever they are, and be them trans, be it whatever, and religion, whatever it is, their interest, if they can be themselves at work, then they can be the best person they are and do the best job, both for them and for their business.
Now, my view is, and I've seen a lot of output from DAC Beachcroft, very positive, very leading the way in this area with regards to sort of pronouns and references as part of your digital signatures and also programs. What are some of the things that DAC have done, you think, quite well in this area that perhaps others should maybe think about for themselves in other firms?
I think so. I mean, sometimes I think that we think we've not done enough, strangely enough, but I think, so it's interesting, and thank you for the positive comments. I think what we've got here is a strong network of networks, and that works really well. Spectrum, that I used to be chair of, which is our LGBT network, and I'm now our LGBT exec champion, for LGBT issues in the group. But it was always a strong network, but we were one of the few networks, and now we've got networks for, women, parent and carers, BAME, you name it, there's something for everyone to be involved in, and also the networks support each other. So, people talk these days about intersectionality, whereby, race touches LGBT rights, it touches, gender, that type of thing. So we're always supporting each other, and safety in numbers. And I think just to finish off, I think the other thing we've done is look for allies, particularly, if only X% of the population are LGBT, and that's obviously highly debatable what those numbers are. My point is, does it matter whether it's 1% or 40%? But getting allies, people that are on your side and helping you, so be it parents, doing things for, for example, girls in IT, that you and I have both, spent a lot of time on,
the deltas,
the deltas and things, and trying to push, that's a difficult area to get, women and young girls into IT is really difficult. 26% of my team are female, but where are the new people coming from?
And it's because it goes back to not just education and syllabus, but as we found through our work through Deltas and others, it's the gender stereotyping from a very young age about what it is right for young boys or young girls to think about, and actually not enough young girls thinking that STEM, maths, science, technology is as much for girls as it is for boys, and then that's sometimes reinforced in the wrong way in the education system that tends to reinforce the wrong stereotype on that. So there's more to do, isn't there?
Absolutely. And some of the Delta things we've been to, you're chatting to the girls around the table and their brother plays shooty games or whatever, shoot 'em ups and things, which is probably great for reactions and things like that, but how many, unless you're driving or something, probably I don't use my reaction times that much in a day. But the girls, again, a little bit of a stereotype, tend to be doing puzzle games, thought games, strategy, that type of thing. They're actually probably more useful in real life situations. But they probably see themselves as not being able to, if you're good at that, how does that transfer into business type of thing? So.
And for the listeners here that don't understand Deltas, Delta stands for Diversity and Ethics in Legal Technology and Security. Quite a mouthful.
Well
There we go. I got it right there. It's been around for many years and actually encourages mainly, I have to say, female leaders, but others as well, people like me and David and others, to come together to actively try and promote the change that is needed to see more diversity coming through legal technology careers, and I shout that out because that is something to look up and be involved in. You mentioned about networks. It's very interesting what you said about networks of support within your business, and I have heard from other companies taking slightly different approaches. The question posed to me: why do we need these networks in today's age? Surely we should all just be open to inclusivity and not need the separate networks, or almost creating a separation. Now, I've never actually been an advocate of that. I still believe that there's a role for the networks. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, people talk about the ghettoization, isn't it? So it's, you want to be part of, everyone else. You want to be treated like everyone else, but on the same breath, you're saying, well, actually, we're separate and things. I mean, I think it's, safety in numbers. I arrived today with my, trans lanyard for Spectrum. Even as an out gay man, and we spoke earlier about, that you and I have been out for many, many years and things, and I'm very confident in that. But when I turn up to one of my offices, or our offices here, and there's hundreds of people wearing these lanyards, I get a little kick in my step. Yeah. I feel safe, I feel wanted, I feel part of the group. Rather than, there are times even today where occasionally I'm on the tube or something and I think, so I'll just take this off. The rainbow lanyard off, or the trans lanyard off, because I'm
nervousness.
I might feel uncomfortable, or it's almost like marking me for it's never happened, but you kind of think, do I really want to be walking down the street in a certain area with this on? So it's.
But in the office, your allies are visible because they're showing that solidarity.
Yeah,
and
we've had. I mean, I've had LGBT people come up to me and say that they weren't out, and then they saw their manager wearing one of these lanyards, and it has helped. So I get it. I think it should be much more. It doesn't really matter, the whole bring yourself to work. But I don't think we're quite there yet. I still think there is some use for these sort of networks, and I don't like to use the term special interest group, but to a certain extent, that's where they are. But I think for me, it's broadening that scope, working together, and then also encouraging allies. I do quite a lot with our women's group, and I've sat in women's group talking about how people dress and all this sort of thing. Probably not super handy for me, unless it's a weekend, obviously. But I'm there to support them, and I'm there as a man to support a man with quite a large team to support, when they're talking about, women's issues, that type of thing. I'm there to support and to be visible for that support.
I'm going to move us forward a little bit into a different area about social mobility, specifically in legal IT, because that's our area. And I'm wondering about people's career progression and the opportunities to move on, not just from a career point of view, but how that can affect your home life and your social life and your standards and quality of life as well. And I'm wondering whether you feel that things are going in the right direction. And what I mean by that is this. There seemed to be 20 or so years ago more opportunities for people to, like you said, you're from a working class background, and you went to university and you've developed this career and you've moved on, and I've had a similar story. Is it harder today to have those opportunities to actually improve your lot and yourself? Is social mobility going in the wrong direction? Has it stagnated? And what might be behind? Is that true or false? I mean, am I on the right track or not?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a difficult one. You and I both work to try and help in these areas, but I am not a person that's in that position anymore. So it's, there for the grace of God go I. When you look at some of the demographics, we've got a big base in Bristol. It's where I'm there most of the time in our office. Bristol has a huge multicultural background. When you look at the unemployment rate for 16 to 20-year-old black youths, it's appalling. And would they ever think they could work in a law firm? These are the sort of issues that I think maybe are there more stereotypes now? Is it more difficult to get on? I think it might be. I'm not sure. I think it's maybe moved on. The categories have moved on. And perhaps for working class white people it's easier, but is it easier for people with an ethnic background or different lived experiences? I'm not sure, but this is why I think it is important for those of us lucky enough to be in the position to try and help, and just level the playing field, so that we get talent from wherever it is.
there's that first step on the ladder, giving that opportunity to open the door and come in, and being open and more open to those that you recruit from.
But also giving them the confidence to think that they could. You know, so this is why we do things like, you know, go to LGBT Pride in Bristol, you know, that type of thing. That it's not what, it's mostly just to support the, you know, the local community, but it's also to be seen as, you know, and talk to people, saying, look, come and work for a law firm. You don't need to be a lawyer. You don't need to go to university and, you know, go to Oxford or Cambridge or whatever. You know, come work for us, work in IT, work in facilities, whatever. You've got, you know, good jobs that you could do.
You've just reminded me that my last law firm, Taylor Rose MW Solicitors, we sponsored Brighton Pride for 5 years, and we're always there in the park, in Preston Park. And what always was the most touching, and we're in the Pride Parade, but what was the most touching piece was lawyers from other firms coming up to you through the day going, it's fantastic to see you here. You know, I wish our firm did this, or whatever. And through that, actually, there were some opportunities for people to consider joining us, because they looked at our values and thought that our values were ones that they could connect with and were maybe surprised by, actually. And so that was good. But I'm thinking with the framework of development, once you've got your people on board, do we, or have we, started to pigeonhole types of roles for certain people? You know, your pathway is first line, second line, third line. That's about it. Okay, your pathway is project administration, project management, and that's it. Or you're a developer, sit in the corner and just develop and don't do anything else. I'm wondering whether, as and this is not really a question about DAC Beachcroft, I'm really just widening this about legal tech, and even in the roles I'm in, are we providing clear pathways of opportunity for people to think beyond the box of what they might be in now? You're not just this techie, you may have other skills. How do we explore those skills? How might you make a change that actually expands your horizons and moves you in a different direction? What's your thoughts there?
I can answer from a Beachcroft perspective. I mean, we don't have it right, and I don't have it right here. It's something that we're working on. So we're looking to adopt the British Computer Society's Sophia framework, skills framework for the information age. So it's quite a good, you know, it puts all the sort of, you know, the functions and processes of IT into a series of sort of buckets, and it starts from, you know, sort of lower level beginner up to sort of now director, you know, manager type of levels. And one of the things it's quite good for is that if you're on the service desk, you know, your customer relationship skills are probably going to be good, and you know, dealing with problems is going to be good. In actual fact, that might be quite good in business analysis as well. You know, don't get me wrong, you might go in at, you know, a fairly junior level because you don't have other experience, but you can begin to see actually these different pathways in IT where you can go to, rather than just, as you said, you know, you go from here to here to here. You know, I just spoke to one of our chaps here, Jerry, who's interested in security. He does desktop support for us here, but he's interested in security, so he's doing of his own back some security, you know, courses, that type of thing, and I was just chatting to him there about helping fund more of that, because that's the career he wants to get into.
So that's helping people help themselves, but actually trying to promote that element.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, security people are difficult to find just now. If we can promote from within and give people opportunity, then, you know, it's a win for him, more opportunity, and win for us. You know, we can find that talent from within rather than constantly going out to market.
You talked there about some work you're doing with the British Computer Society. What do you think? Do you think there's a role for law firms to collaborate more in this area of actually trying to promote opportunities? Is it even possible? We are actually a collaborative lot, aren't we, in the legal community, especially in legal IT. We do share, we do, you know, turn up at each other's offices and share ideas and go to conferences. I'm just wondering, because we are actually not a closed group, quite an open group, whether there's more opportunity for us to think about how we develop our people and share ideas about that across the network.
There probably is. I mean, that's a British Computer Society thing, so it's quite a wide and generic thing, but there's certainly perhaps more work on, and again, without promoting deltas too much, you know, we have looked at those sort of things and how we do trainees and apprenticeships through deltas, but perhaps there is something with regards to like standardising job titles in legal IT, so that we can more easily see, and we could create some common career paths and frameworks that we could share if we all got together, so that you know, my BA could go and work for you from to be a project manager doing something else, and we know exactly what sort of level they're at and things. So
it's like, and you just triggered something there. Let's say that you've got a practice management change coming up in 6 months' time, and the firm I've been in has just did that a year or so ago, and our people are quite skilled at that, and so that there's almost maybe across secondment 3 months.
Yeah.
Go over there and help them share some lessons learned, and some of your people come over here and see how we've done it.
Yeah.
And how we put it in, and then go back, and
Yeah, I mean,
that's an incident that just comes to the top of my head listening to what you're saying.
That's an interesting one, because we would do at the moment calls and references, and we'd help each other out, but it'd be interesting to do a 3 month secondment or something.
Yes.
But I mean, I'm quite open. I would rather people have a good career than bump into them in the pub in 3 years' time for them to say they still work for us and it's been a nightmare and they hate it. I'd rather people move on, and quite often they come back to work for us and later on in their career.
Yeah.
And I've said to people recently, look, if you're interested in this and we can't support it, then I can introduce you to other people in legal IT. You like working legal, maybe another firm will have more opportunity in this area. And it's not that I'm trying to get rid of them, it's just I'm trying to provide opportunity for them. And at some point they may come back, as a lot of them do.
Now, David, I'm curious, and I will be asking every CIO or IT director.
I'm now getting worried.
Same question. What keeps you awake at night? What's the biggie that is always there in the consciousness that unnerves you?
Easily security. I mean, I think, the war for talent, which I think was over exaggerated, but I'm now seeing it, every day in life at the moment, and I think for us it's kind of fine, but if we continue to have this many vacancies for that long, it means that other people in the team are under the caution, getting more and more stressed probably. So that's probably going to be, an increasing angst for me. But I think easily, particularly in law at the moment, it's security.
And is that because the cyber threat is getting worse?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, 3 years ago, 10 years ago, everyone talked about it, everyone had heard about, whatever dating site it was, Madison something or other, I think at the time, had been hacked. But these days, you and I could go to the pub and bump into a colleague and either, we've had an attempted hack, or they have, or someone else has, within our own network.
Yes.
Everyone has either a near miss or an unfortunate, issue they've had to deal with, or know someone that very recently has had that. So
no one escapes.
Yeah.
It's constant, isn't it?
Yeah.
Are we, aware of that? Actually, the last 12 months, barristers have been particularly targeted as individuals, not necessarily the chambers, as potential weak points. But that has also been the concern of law firms who have to use these chambers, and there's been a knock-on effect of law firms saying to their chambers, you've got to up your investment and your programs and your breadth of security, because it doesn't just affect you and your client, it is our client, and then it reflects on us as well.
I mean, some weeks we were dealing with 3 or 4 client, barrister, some sort of cyber breach out with our remit, not our firm per se, but trying to deal with the aftermath of that we had an email sent in from someone that had been hacked through some sort of method, and it's a lot of effort for us to deal with, never mind the poor folks that have been hit by such a thing. So, and again, for the second time, there for the grace of God go I. We are not arrogant enough to think that it won't happen to us. It's probably a matter of time, but you just have to take as many measures as you can to prevent it.
And as someone like myself who's been through this with a law firm in the past and had to work for a managed service provider at the moment that looks after law firms that go through these things, there is an emotional impact, there is an emotional harm element once you've not just dealing with the event and the stress of that, but actually the post event element affects you. I mean, my event was back in 2014, and immediately afterwards I was very risk averse, risk averse. I was overreacting to issues, and I would say that I didn't have an equilibrium of risk understanding, because I considered every type of event a cyber event, whether it was or wasn't, and so there was some counselling and other bits and pieces to sort of decompile that and deal with it and move on. It has a cost beyond just the very bad cost of.
Yeah, I
as
see
it
that.
is.
I see that at the moment. We're now having to send sometimes emails to our entire firm to say you will get an email tomorrow from this external system. It's about some stuff, something that we want them to fill out or do or something, health and safety assessment or something. Because it's not coming from our email address, they instantly are worried, which is great news.
Yes, because it shows their awareness.
Their awareness is high, but a bit like you, the stress is high and the worry is high, and so it's that balance between keeping them worried enough that they're careful, but
Yes.
but not actually scaring the bejesus out of them.
Because I was going to ask you about your stakeholders here and your fee earners and how easy it is to justify what is sometimes very expensive spend on cyber. And of course, it's not just we've spent it, now we don't need to worry about it for 2 years. It evolves. Next year there is more spend, there is different spend. And so, how do you think things are here at DAC with just your peers and your stakeholder groups understanding that this is just something that will never go away, and it's unfortunately...
I mean, we spend a huge amount. I mean, we've got some products we sell in this space. So here's a sales pitch back to you. On the cyber, risk side of things with regards to response apps, and if you get hacked, how you're going to communicate, all that type of thing.
Yeah.
So we actually have our own tools that we resell, and part of that is because we've got our own cyber risk team of lawyers that that do a fantastic job, and what's quite good at that. They are feeding my team and their security efforts, with real life examples of what is happening, what they're seeing out in the commercial world. But our exec is absolutely in tune to this. It's now a standing agenda item at any of the execs that I go to and things. So,
and you think that's key? That boards of other firms, partnership boards must have a standing regular item.
Yeah, I think that's one of them. I think it's top to bottom. It's a standing item. For us, it's the highest or one of the highest risks on our agenda. We're trying to manage it. We're investing more and more. Every day we invest more in information security. We are a law firm, so we're expected to have the highest levels of IT security and information security as well. But it's a lot of it when it comes down to is the people, and it is getting the balance right between showing them the risks and things, and also lawyers are getting charged often by the 6-minute unit, so you don't want to interrupt their day as little as possible. So you have to. There is that balance of keeping them attuned to this, but also not interfering and annoying them too much.
Are you hopeful or pessimistic that across the industry, our legal industry, we can either get ahead or stay where we need to be ahead of the cyber criminals?
I think as an industry we're doing quite well. We're doing a lot better than we were before.
Yeah.
And I think, but there are still weak spots. We saw that, as you say, with the barristers and other. It's always the weakest link in the chain that these people, and it's not even sometimes they deliberately target, but when these malwares are released, it's sometimes not even affecting the people that were originally targeted. It falls to the people that are unprotected. So I think we're a lot better than we used to. I think the ones I worry for are the smaller firms.
Yeah.
We've got almost 3,000 people. We can afford to a certain extent to invest in these systems. If your chambers, if you're 2 or 3 barristers, it's a different kettle of fish. But you're dealing with the same sort of information. It's all client privilege, etc. But you don't have the budget that.
You're going to have to buy in the service rather than employ the expertise, because it's difficult for you to employ the expertise. So you're going to have to buy.
And then, do you even know what you want to buy, or what You've got salespeople battering down your door constantly, about security and all the rest of it, and it's a lot of it is fear mongering, but rightfully so.
But you made a very important point about the end to end. It's the weakest point, and the end to end is not always just your firm's end to end. It's that ecosystem of your feed in your experts, your consultants, and the others that you deal with, and barristers and courts, etc. Yeah, you have to think of the whole chain.
Absolutely.
David, you and me, right, we're technologists. Are we all...
Correct-ish.
Now, are you having a dig at me, or are you being self-deprecating there?
We'll come back to the question. I'll answer that in the question, I think.
Are we all tech mad? And what do I mean by that is, sometimes as technologists, our job is to come up with technology-based answers and then people and process. But is that always right? In other words, is the answer to every sort of problem in a business technology or digital?
Yeah. So I think that's where I half answered on that, half technologist. So I would say I'm a business person first, and then a technologist second.
Right.
And I make jokes about, I don't actually do any technology, I just do HR and finance and all the rest of it. At my sort of level, it's all about budget, as we talked about recruitment and things.
Yep.
And yes, I can still talk technically, get megaflops and hertz and this, that and the next thing and bits and bobs and bytes, etc., if that's what the terminology is these days. But I think technologists and technology, gets brought in far too quickly. I think often it should be the last. If I sat with you as a business leader in our business, I would say, talk about the process, the people, and everything around it, what you want, the inputs, the outputs, etc. And only then, when all that's sorted, would I ever talk about a product or an IT system or something. I would much prefer you run it on an Excel spreadsheet, on a bit of paper, whatever it is, if possible, before we talk immediately to buying a tool. Often IT people can go straight to, I have a tool, I've got a shiny new thing, I go to these conferences and don't get me wrong, I'm like everyone else. There's been one or two things I bought because they look fantastic and it looks like some out the Matrix, and one pops into mind, but I won't talk about it. Because it looks cool and I'm still a bit of a geek at heart.
Yes.
But I think it's very easy to do that. I think, we have to be, I think there's still far too many people that are just interested in tech for technology's sake. Bring it back to why are you doing it? Does it need to be done? What benefit does it bring? We're in the business of law and making money. What benefit does that bring?
So it's getting the balance right of understanding your process, understanding what is about people and learning, and understanding what can technology do, but focusing first on what is it we're trying to do here? What are you trying to achieve? Before you think of any of those things, what are you trying to achieve and why? Is it the right thing?
Yeah.
And then we look in a balanced way at the way to address those things.
And it's not just even technologists. I fall over this all the time, where people are themselves have seen, in the business have seen something and they want a tech, answer to something, but they're not even sure sometimes what the question is, never mind the output, and then all of a sudden you're looking for a tech answer to that. That can be quite a dangerous path because you're not really sure what you're looking for. And that's why I think a lot of tech projects, aren't successful, because people have forgotten that first part and they've launched straight into what tech can I buy to solve this. You've got a solution looking for a problem.
And I've seen something, and I've been in legal IT for nearly 20 years now. I know I don't look it, but it's there was even a publishing career before that.
Some good moisturiser.
It is, yes. I've invested well in it. But I've never found the consistent answer amongst our peers and leaders who have different views on this, which is you bring in some technology and it does some stuff, okay? And what lawyers want to do is different stuff, and therefore you try and re-engineer that bit of technology, but it's not actually designed to do that, right? One angle. The other angle is this technology is designed to do this in a particular way, so we should change what we do over here to fit that, because this is what it does very well, so why would we try and buy something and then break it and change it? And I've seen these competing elements sometimes, and people who get very fervent about one direction being, all the lawyers must change and do this in a sort of standard way versus, no, this is what is right, this is what we've decided as a business how we should sort of practice. If the tool's not good enough, don't use it, get something else. Where are you on this dividing wall?
Yeah, I think I might have to fence it in this one, which is, as you well know, is unusual for me. I think it depends on the circumstance. When you look at large ERP systems like SAP and Oracle, which I dealt with outside of legal, the worst thing you can do is start to say, I want everything matched to my own process for whatever reason. These systems would be designed to run, global, billion, companies and things. If you cannot get your way of working to sort of suit that, then you're in trouble. It becomes very costly. You can do it, but it becomes very costly. Law firms, however, as long as your ERP, your finance, your PMS system is fairly standard, then I think you can afford to, in certain parts of the business, have slightly different ways of working. I think, where I would counter the lawyers would be if you're providing healthcare or real estate advice across, the country, across the globe, do you not want to provide quite holistic, same great standard of service, rather than in this location we do it this way and in that location we do it that way. And
Yes.
surely if you're using different systems, different ways of working, different processes, the client is going to get a different experience, either from each location, from each lawyer, from each team. There has to be something. Don't get me wrong, some people want very specialist service. We talk here about bespoke solutions, one client at a time. And that's fine, but we would say it's out of our toolkit of, here's standard solutions, and it's the way we put the platform together to provide that bespoke solution. So it's not actually, 5 million different things. It's putting together a toolkit of things to provide a bespoke experience for a client.
And sometimes, and in my current role, I'm asked the question a lot by clients or prospects, we want to change our practice management system. And my standard answer, first of all, is why? And sometimes that question flummoxes them.
Yeah.
They go, well, the current one's not good enough.
Why?
Okay, why? Yes. What's it not do?
Yeah.
What do you want it to do that it
Five
doesn't
whys, and you eventually get to the
do?
truth or
Yes.
something.
And actually, have you actually, even forget the tool, have you actually figured out what you really want? Not from a technology piece, but what are you trying to do? What are you trying to achieve that is different than you're doing now, that is not right? Because sometimes, actually, the tech you've got can do it. You've just never built it that way, or you've never configured it
Or you
that
don't
way.
use it that way,
You
yeah.
just think, it doesn't do it now, change the tech. There's almost this drive to change.
Yeah.
And actually, sometimes it's like, it's adapt, it's build on, or think again, And so, is that something that you've seen?
Absolutely.
For yourself?
The example there, I mean, we have just moved on to a new practice management system in the cloud, but that was because our current system, like a lot of law firms, is coming to end of use and end of life, and as usual in IT. But often the example you give, people say, oh well, the information it gives out is rubbish. Well, systems won't give out rubbish information unless you put garbage in,
Garbage in, garbage out, yeah.
So you track it back to whoever, the inputter, the lawyer, whatever it is not actually recording the information right in the first place.
Yeah.
Of course then the system is going to provide garbage, so it's you can change whatever system, and maybe it's automatically capturing that thing that's in the ether, and that might need a new system, but unless you get to the core of the problem, you're just spending a lot of money for nothing.
Yes, and my guidance is you might need to change, but first of all, figure out what it is you want to do and what that change entails, and that will drive your decision, whether to stick or twist, and, as it were, and do something different.
And I think in this, I think we're all guilty. I think we've just signed off a new IT strategy. If I was being critical, I think it's still a little bit too IT centric. It's now the sort of second 2.5 iterations since I've arrived here. I think the next one, this current one, and certainly the next one as it melds into the next one, we're trying to get much more lawyer focused. We're putting all these great systems, best of breed, blah blah blah. But what is the experience of the lawyer? If you go through that door, what will they say about our systems and how they come together, and how easy is it to do their job? We've been so busy working really hard, and that's not to spite my team, working really hard to get these systems in. Sometimes we lose actually we're here to make the lawyer's life easier.
Yes.
And how do we put these together? How many clicks is it to get that information?
Yeah.
It might be a fabulously complex and a good way system that gives you lots of capability.
Yes.
But in actual fact, to do the day job, it's giving you 5 mouse clicks instead of 2. That is not great for a lawyer.
This might be the most compliant system we've built, where we've factored every risk in. However, it now takes 3 hours to do the job that really you could do in 10 minutes. And actually, you can manage that risk and that compliance by being a bit smarter with automation of the various bits and pieces. So that's a classic. But let's talk about you just triggered something, because you were talking about the lawyers, and I'm interested in change and the amount of change and disruptive change. Because when you're changing systems or adapting systems and you have multiple programs of work going on, IT departments can be blamed, or the criticism comes, you're always changing everything, why can't you just stop? I can't cope with this, I've not even learned that system yet, and you're already changing this over here. I mean, do we need to help our people just become more adaptive to change, or do they have a point?
I think it's both. I think, we mentioned that we've just moved our practice management system. We've been obviously doing lots of other things as well. A change doesn't stop. We have this exact issue here just now, and I think probably all companies do, particularly law firms. my personal view is that I think we need to explain to people what we're doing, why we're doing it and things. We talked about security earlier. We're having to upgrade almost every application every month these days just to keep up. That is difficult for IT. Frankly, who cares about IT? It's certainly difficult for the business to keep up with that change. But have we spent the time to explain to them the risks of not doing that and why we're doing it? I think sometimes they think, why on earth are they doing this month and then back to back with that and then something else? Sometimes projects slip, sometimes something has to be done more urgently. So we do generally try here at least to space things out to give them a little breather, but sometimes it doesn't work out as well as I would personally like. So there's that.
Do you think we judge the human ability to adapt to change enough and factor that into our program management, which is, and actually, let's face it, some people can adapt to change better than others as well. So it's not a universal measurement, is it?
Yeah.
But are we at risk of adding to work pressures and stress, the whole sort of wellness and well-being agenda, by just being a bit too much sometimes and not trying to measure or understand that a bit?
I mean, I think the last 2 years, when we talk, we're trying to avoid the C word, but COVID and everything else, it has been a huge amount of change for everyone, and a lot of it, quite a lot of it positive, but not all of it, and different ways of working things, and the amount of change that most companies have gone through, never mind law firms, is extraordinary, and well done to everyone. But I think people are a bit sort of fed up and a bit jaded by that all as well. And I think for me, communication, when you look at all these sort of change theories and things, if you do not communicate the vision, why you're doing it, why it needs to happen, get the person themselves to go through the change in their mind of, I need this change as well. It's not just being imposed on me by IT or the company or whatever, that we own the change together. It's all just kind of elementary things, but I don't think most of the time, if we're honest, most of us get it right. I think there's so much more we could do on that. But lawyers are an incredibly difficult group of people to, grab them for 5 minutes and get them and say, look, this is what we're doing, this is why. We're trying to do it, via emails, via workplace, by Facebook, via, verbal communication in Teams, but there's no perfect way to do it. I think for lawyers, they are incredibly busy. So it's getting the information to the right people at the right time.
I think also there's a danger maybe for some of the more established firms because of some of the new startups, and there's more of them coming. There's more disruptive change in the legal market, new players, the finance houses, especially coming in with legal teams, being purposely disruptive by building new legal services from scratch, tech built to start with, client focused to start with, and that disruptive change is going to affect us. Maybe those established firms, so they have to be careful not to stagnate. No one wants to be the blockbuster, and sometimes disruptive change, as painful as it is needed, isn't it, to keep us fresh and on the ball.
No, definitely. And I think also we have to be careful. We're talking about diversity earlier, about ageism. I mean, I've seen some quite young lawyers being quite resistant to change, so it's people fall into the scope of obviously you're fantastically much younger than me, but people of my age, older, finding change difficult. I don't think it really ages is a particular demographic around it. I think it's more about people's psyche and whether they are open to things, particularly how it affects them and does it affect them positively and things. So I think it's more about probably doing more psychological work around what are people's, in a good way, trigger points, and what other, some people are emotional, some people are not. But as you say, if you've got one of these, law firm or legal services businesses, they have no offices, they've got part-time lawyers, they're working in these sort of really interesting and different ways. Probably putting systems changes through a business like that is arguably easier than a more traditional law firm, but not always the case. But the minute we start to say that they are dinosaurs, or you need to move with the times, that's probably going to lose the audience. You have to bring them with you. And explain to them, this is good and this is why it's good. Well,
let me be a bit contentious.
Surely not you.
I'm going to try and stir it up a little bit here towards the end of our session, and I'm going to move into that AI area, the RPA, robotic process automation, that world. Does it really matter if you can take your lawyers with you? Because traditional lawyers, it's all over for them, isn't it, David? I mean, it's going to be AI and RPA all the way, And if they don't get with the new program, it doesn't matter because we've got a new program that does your job. Is it real?
Much as I'd like the real new, the brave new world of much fewer lawyers and law firms, and my colleagues always laugh when I say that, I'm not quite sure. I think that's a little bit of a load of, I won't use one of these naughty words, but I don't quite agree as vociferously as you do.
So you're a bit of a skeptic?
I am not just a bit of a skeptic, a huge skeptic. I think when you look at AI tools, the way I see them is, they're word for the 21st century. They're a useful addition. They'll make lawyers and people in general more productive, but that's all they are. They're email, they're Word, like Excel for the modern day. They are only good at doing certain very limited scope and tasks at the moment. There will come a time where it will broaden and they'll become much better. I only can give you an example. Last week I was here doing a strategy session and tried to call in one of my colleagues, and through Cortana I had to say the person's name 47 times for it to call using the voice recognition, and I know that's not...
Surely that's your beautiful Scottish accent.
Funnily enough, I didn't cope very well with this beautiful Scotch accent, so maybe that's what the problem was. But I think AI is an incredibly useful tool. We use elements of AI, robotic process automation, that type of thing. But it is very limited to putting that onto a client portal, doing this very, very narrow job here. So you're talking about it, taking, helping someone with 6 hours of their time a week or a day a week in very particular roles, not there goes half a lawyer's time.
You don't feel that within the next, say, 5 years, which is a relatively short space of time, that actually there won't be quite a paradigm shift here, that actually the narrow business cases you're talking about and applications suddenly become much wider, that actually the advances here are jumping ahead? I
think it will grow, and I don't think, I am a great skeptic in these things and technology and all this. It normally takes quite a long time. Twitter took, I think, about 10 different iterations to actually take off and things, so I think it will get there. 5 years is difficult. You get people that are a lot more intelligent in legal IT than even yourself that predict, lawyers will be gone by this year, next year. And 1 year they're going to be right, because every year they say, yep, next year definitely lawyers are going, but it hasn't happened yet. So I think, humanity, we're not quite at the singularity and machines replacing humans quite yet.
Yes.
Do I think that might happen?
Terminator moment just
Do I think that Terminator moment might happen? Yes, I do think it might, but I don't think it's going to happen for quite some time. Thankfully. We'll probably be long gone. Well, I will certainly be long gone. You'll probably still be here.
We'll be exterminated, is that what you're saying, David?
You might live forever.
We'll have some T2 model come through the door and say...
If you're a great moisturiser, you might live forever.
We don't need CIOs anymore. Bing.
It won't be moisturised, you'll be embalmed by that point.
Thank you, yes. Well, David, we've covered a lot of topics today and in this podcast. So, firstly, thank you very much for agreeing to do this and our first one. I think we've had a good chat around the houses on a few things there. And I look forward to seeing how this sort of plays back as we sort of broadcast. For now, I'll just say thank you to our audience on this, our podcast number 1, our first audience with CIO David Aird from DAC Beachcroft, and our next session will be coming up with Mark Parr, CIO at HFW, and we look forward to speaking to him soon. But for now, we say goodbye. Thanks for tuning in to the Shaped for Law podcast. I hope you enjoyed the episode and picked up useful insights into the world of legal tech. You can catch more episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Whilst you're at it, I would greatly appreciate your support by liking, sharing, and leaving a review of this podcast. Until the next time, this is David Verzakli signing off.